This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world, with your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, I'm bringing you a brand new company, and I'll tell you what, I'm really excited to have them on our show. They came on my radar about 4 months ago. We're talking no other than Rainmaker Worldwide, Inc. They trade on the OTC markets under the ticker symbol RAKR. And with us today is the CEO. We're very lucky to get in touch with him, is Mike O'Connor. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Give my listeners a little bit about statement of who you guys are, and then I want to get into some Q&A.
Sure. Rainmaker, it's been around for some time. It started basically in R&D back 2010 timeframe by our founder, the original Dutch founder, Piet Oosterling, has more than 400 patents to his name, a true inventor, entrepreneur. I'll skip forward several years to my involvement, where we're commercializing effectively two types of products, so-called air-to-water, which produces water using a condensation process from the air, just like it sounds, requires heat, humidity, and if you're using renewable energy, wind and sun. That was originally our base product. And then we have what's called the water-to-water product, which uses the same heating and cooling technology, the proprietary technology, but we use it in a different way to create a membrane distillation process, which can treat everything from salt water to poisonous water with things like mercury, effluents from uranium mines, etc. We basically have two elements: commercial applications, and so for our company, it was really important to not only generate real value for stakeholders and shareholders, but also to do something that's important in the world, which is to give people who don't have clean water as much of it as we can.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems out there in third world countries. I'm going to ask you, one of the questions is that you got a machine that can turn salt water into a distilled water. What is the best market prospects for Rainmaker going forward? And if you could maybe enlighten us a little bit about that new technology, water to water, if you could.
Sure. If you take a step back from what's traditionally been used to clean either salt or some kinds of dirty water, it's basically these large desalination projects, which people are maybe familiar driving by when they're on highways next to the ocean. These are typically made for very large-scale production, and when they are large-scale, they produce water pretty efficiently. They require all kinds of distribution links and piping into houses and the various community elements. And then there's another technology which is called reverse osmosis.
Yes.
But in all of these situations, the water is actually driven through what are called membranes, and they're done so with considerable force. Takes a lot of energy, and it also causes a lot of damage to the membranes themselves. So the smaller versions of these machines typically don't last very long, and they require an extensive amount of maintenance and oftentimes redundancy. So our founders wanted to create something that removed all those elements. Some lower cost operating cost and maintenance, so that they could be deployed in remote areas, more cost efficient from an energy perspective, and could treat virtually any kind of dirty water that may present itself either in rural situations or commercial situations. So the basic element of the technology is, rather than driving water through membranes, this is really a condensation process where the steam is actually going through. The water is heated, and the steam is what goes through the membrane, so water actually never touches the membranes. So they never get dirty, you never need to clean them. And then what comes out the other side is distilled water. It's just effectively as if you're, in the First Nations here in Canada, it's like boil alerts, right? You have to boil the water and distilled water, except we do that at scale. And we can do that with renewable energy, wind, solar, which sets us apart in many cases. But we can also use hybrid solutions like we have with our military machine, which is a bit limiting in the definition, But just to give you a sense of what the product looks like, it's a 20-foot container, the military machine, in cooperation with our partners, Bradenor, the generator company, where in a 20-foot container, you have a generator, which generates 35 kilowatts of power for military or in disaster relief situations. People can plug in their devices and get the electricity out of it. And we take 15 kilowatts of power, run our water making process through it. We also use the waste heat, so we're not throwing all the heat and all the combustion out into the air, but we use that waste heat to heat up the water on the other side. And that machine, that 20-foot containerized solution, generates 25,000 liters a day of pure water. So you can imagine that in a setting of, in a disaster or forward operating base for military, where they may need water for maybe not just drinking, which is easy to treat on the back end with minerals and basically a recipe to taste, but also you can use it for medical applications, which is oftentimes in these scenarios of disaster, whether you're talking Indonesia or even coastal cities of the United States, where you can actually create medical grade water from wastewater. So the flexibility of our machine, the cost of operating it, the decentralized nature of it, all make it pretty unique in the market. And the market size for this is just however big we can make it. To give you a sense of, there are literally tens of thousands of smaller reverse osmosis machines used by militaries around the world, all of which need to be replaced. So you can do the math. I mean, it's huge. The military market alone for us is probably 10 times of our forecasted business as it currently stands.
Well, you bring up some good points, Mike, and one of the things I wanted to maybe get an answer from you is that you have machines that can produce 37,000, 75,000, 150,000 liters per day. That being said, where does the company plan to get the future capital to make these machines and to get them out to the marketplace?
Well, right now, we're in the middle of a raise, give or take $3 million private investors, angel investors. That's kind of what it's been to date. At normally some small discount to what we're trading on the OTC market. It's restricted paper. But ultimately, we've kind of been victims. I think a lot of small business entrepreneurs out there will be familiar with this. Oh, you're too big, or you're too small, or you don't really fit into the right niche of how much capital is being placed at the right time. It's all a matter of timing, as you know. So one of the things we did was go on to the OTC with the expectation that would facilitate some money raising. It has. We have raised some money since a year ago, June. But what we're intending to do now is with this new money that's coming in as we speak, is to uplist, do the S1 filing, and really step it up a level, so that if we do come across a large-scale project, then it'll become much easier to raise money from the market. Now, the thing about our products is that we also, our early customers that you see in our press, with Sri Lanka, Jamaica, and the Caribbean, South Africa, our distribution partners are investing in their own businesses locally and effectively buying the machines themselves with significant down payments, et cetera, that facilitate the construction of the equipment themselves. But you're right, if we run into something large, whether it's the 300 First Nations in Canada that require these machines, then we'll be looking to project finance. And we have a lot of interested parties. There's a lot of people sitting on the fence waiting for that first large contract to hit, people who've already done due diligence on the technology, and they're waiting for us to call and say, okay, well, we need 30, 40, 50 million to help finance this large project. So that's kind of the way we're going about it. We do feel like once we uplist and kind of go through that level of sophistication to give investors comfort, that will facilitate a much easier path to future financing.
Mike, I've had a lot of life science technology companies on my show this year that are in the same space as you are. What gives you guys a competitive advantage against some of your competitors and alternative technologies?
Yeah, I think that the basics of it are, I think that when Pete designed our approach to this, he knew that ultimately our customers were going to be unique in either geographic location or what they were going to use it for, et cetera, et cetera. So the design of the units being containerized, basically you flip a switch, they work. They don't require a lot of human intervention once they get started. Our systems can be run remotely. They can be run on any kind of renewable energy, and also combined in hybrid solutions. So the flexibility of our solutions, combined with the fact that they're movable, they're decentralized, they can be put anywhere, and just the fact that it's just cost effectiveness of all those things put together, because they were originally designed with renewable energy in mind. What ends up happening when you apply traditional energy, we've designed them so effectively that we're using, half as much energy as our competitors to do half as much production. So in the end, we're talking multiples of productive efficiency compared to anything else that's out there. And one specific thing on the air to water that you'll see, and there's a lot of good smaller scale technologies out there that are designed for remote home use, cottages, that kind of thing. But they're really just sophisticated dehumidifiers. They can't be built to scale. They can't be stacked. They can't, consolidated into large-scale units. And they require very high levels of humidity to work. But because of the proprietary nature of our heating and cooling systems, we don't need that. For us, it's the combination of elements. It's heat, humidity, and in the case if we need wind, air pressure, et cetera, so that we can be producing significant amounts of water at sub 50% relative humidity. You don't see anything like that on the market. And again, with the water-to-water, some of the advantages I already spoke of, including the cost efficiency. We don't need redundancy, the flexibility of the nature of the water we can treat. So on both the air-to-water and water-to-water, it boils down to be able to just flexibility and cost efficiency.
You've been listening to my guest, Mike O'Connor, CEO of Rainmaker Worldwide, Inc. You can find them on the OTC markets under the ticker symbol RAKR. You can go to their website at www.rainmakerww.com. Mike, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It's a pleasure to have you on here. I hope you come back in 40 or 50 days and give us an update of what's going on behind the scenes with your company.
No, my pleasure. I'd welcome that. Thank you very much.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire, LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.